Chapter 1. You're my man from now on. You are listening at FameTV.info. Chapter 1. You're my man from now on, translator. Atlas Studios editor. Atlas Studios Capital, Royal Hotel, Tangimoa ran forcibly along the corridor that was lined with custom-made wool carpeting and decorated with champagne-gold chandeliers. Her silky black hair flew mid-air, revealing half of her tiny, youthful face. It was hot, really hot. What was wrong with her? There was a dry and hot sensation within her that was rapidly burning throughout her body and was making its way onto her tiny face. It was not only unstoppable, but also made her feel incredibly unwell. She had only just arrived in the capital after traveling from Kargalik, and had gladly accepted a glass of water that Han Xiaowan had handed over to her. Han Xiaowan was her younger half-sister from another father. There were about 4 or 5 sleazy-looking punks chasing after her. They shouted loudly, chasing after her doggedly. Get her. This is Kargalik's greatest beauty. Miss Han has especially rewarded us with this beauty, don't let her get away. Han Xiaowan was the culprit behind her poisoning. Seeing the punks had almost caught up to her, the door to the VIP elevator in front of her suddenly opened. A group of people walked out. The man who was being escorted at the front of the crowd was dressed impeccably in a custom-made suit. He had a burgundy-colored handkerchief placed in the front pocket of his suit, and was extremely good-looking. He had prominent features, formed exquisitely like an artist's most perfect work of art. He had sexy, dark red lips that were constantly pursed, exuding a sense of superiority and indifference, just like an emperor, high up and untouchable. Tangimoa flew over to him immediately as if she had met her savior. She held his onto neck, her small cherry lips whispering softly, "Please save me, mister. I've been drugged and the men behind are trying to rape me. I don't know you." There was a deep, charismatic voice in her ear, which was highly magnetic. Tangimoa was stunned. She lifted her eyes and saw a man with a pair of narrowed eyes, his gaze so deep and cold, it was able to make one shiver. I don't know you, so I can't save you. This reasoning was so rational that no one would be able to argue against it. Tangimoa felt like she had been drenched with a bucket of cold water. She had actually met a man who was unwilling to save her, despite having the ability to do so. What should I do? With no other solution available, she hurriedly tiptoed and kissed him lightly on the lips. The group of people behind them gasped at the scene in shock. They had never imagined that their big boss would be kissed by a girl in such a way. Did she even know who it was she had just kissed? Her lips were not only soft and smooth, but also beautifully fragrant, and with a softness like jelly, irresistible and making him want more. His body muscles tensed up immediately and his breathing became heavier. He didn't actually dislike the woman's kiss, or even the woman. The little thing was beautiful. Her clear and beautiful eyes were now blurry and unfocused. Even her tiny face that was previously radiant had become affected by the drugs. She pressed her lips against his heavily and winked at him. "Mister, this is our chance to know each other. Now that I've left my mark on your lips, you are my man from now on. You're my man from now on." He quirked the corner of his lips. There were so many women who had been after him over the years, but this was the first time someone had brazenly declared that he was her man. He looked at her with renewed interest. She had a pair of clear and beautiful eyes that were oozing with charm whenever she glanced around. How interesting. His large palms were distinct as he put them around her tiny waist. The corner of his mouth rose a little. He said wickedly, "If I'm your man, why am I not aware?" Her delicate, feminine body against his forceful one were now close together, in an ambiguous position. A gush of air rushed into her tiny nostrils, filling her with his body scent. It didn't smell bad, or rather, it smelled surprisingly good. Her youthful face was unknowingly becoming red. She was just 18 years old and had never been in such an intimate position with a man. Indeed, men are always unreliable. Humph, bad men, what an overbearing gangster. The sleazy-looking punks had caught up to her. Tangimoa, stop running. Seeing the punks had already caught up, Tangimoa hurriedly placed her delicate hands around his neck, as if she was an octopus clinging onto his body. She exclaimed, "Mister, please carry me into your room." I'll slowly let you understand how you'll become my man. He glanced at her with a cold smile using his narrow eyes, then lifted his eyes and looked at the punks with an expressionless gaze. The punks froze. They had much experience in life and recognized the man who stood in front of them. He was constantly featured on the headlines of most financial and economic magazines. He was the economic lifeline of the capital and they had constantly seen him in the media. Gu Mohan, the punks took off immediately as they had felt threatened. Gu Mohan lifted Tanya Moore up and walked into the presidential suite. In the presidential suite. Listen to the full novel at FameTV.info, direct link in the description.